The source of fear is not what you think. Here are two key things that you need to know to have an empowered perspective on fear. Hi, I'm Saratoga Ocean, and I help people master the law of attraction, spiritually awaken, and embark on a conscious path of ascension. In this video, I'm going to explain exactly what makes fear possible and why it exists at all. I'm going to share with you two key things that you need to know to have an empowered perspective on fear. So firstly, there's the ultimate source of fear, which explains why fear exists at all. And then secondly, there is the physical source of fear. So I'm going to talk to you about both of those things. Let's start with the ultimate source of fear and why fear exists at all. Now, we know that the truth about this universe is that all is supposed to exist in a state of oneness and omnipresent love, because that is foundational to the creation of everything that exists. But we also know that there is free will in the universe, free will to create. And a lot of experiences have been created, right? So let me first address a very common theory about why discord and fear and suffering and all of that negative stuff exists in the world. A very common theory is that God or source energy wanted to experience itself in all of these different ways all over our planet and, for that matter, all throughout the universe. And that's why we have so much trouble. So the theory is that God wanted to experience itself in the form of all this full spectrum of experiences, from happiness, sadness, love, hate, tragedy, trauma, fear, all that stuff. Honestly, guys, does this really make sense? Because if you believe this theory, then you have to believe that God, which is supposedly love, right, conceived of all this evil and trauma and terror and suffering and just thought, let's add that into the mix. Maybe what for? To see what happens. So to me, this theory doesn't make any sense, because all that negative stuff really can't come from that which is indeed omnipresent love, because love begets only love, right? So that's not exactly how this whole situation started. It actually started with a very weird experiment that gave rise to the entire universe as we know it now. And when I say the entire universe, I'm referring to the universe that we currently live in. So here's how it works. Every creation starts as a thought in the cosmic mind. So in the beginning, you have a state of omnipresent love where everything that manifests as a beautiful expression of that love. And that's called normal. So everything that manifests as a unique and individual expression of I am love, or I am omnipresence. So in that reality, everything is unified as one great whole. And it's understood that no matter how big something is or how small something is, everything is equal in terms of love, power, and importance. Because everything in creation is a singular manifestation of the larger infinite I am. So that's where everything begins. So in that space of omnipresent love, a strange thought emerged in the form of a question. The question was this: everything in this universe is known as what it is, as an expression of I am. I wonder what would happen if something was known by what it is not, rather than by what it is. Is that even possible? Well, of course it's not possible. So how would you create that? Well, there's only one way. You would have to start by creating the first original lie. So if everything is a manifestation of I am omnipresence or I am omnipresent love, then the only way to start this aberration would be to lie and say I am not omnipresence. And that's how duality got created. So now, instead of one thing manifesting in love, you have two things manifesting in opposition to one another. You have I am omnipresence and you have I am not omnipresence. One is the truth and the other is a lie. And now you have duality and opposition created in the universe. And this gives rise to a whole host of problems and all kinds of unresolvable issues. And this is what has created the mess that we're in and the mess that the entire universe is in. So right now, ascension is about evolving back into that state of oneness so that creation can proceed harmoniously as it was intended in the first place. So what I've described to you here is the basic foundational physics of how all this junk got created. It's all the result of this weird experiment about I am not. And this is the actual source of fear or source of the existence of fear itself. Now, fear actually has its own physics, and those physics, in truth, are actually neutral, but they do give rise to all the different manifestations of fear that we are unfortunately so familiar with. Now, you may have heard it said that there are only two fundamental emotions, love and fear. And fear is founded in the experience of I am not, whereas love is founded in the experience of I am. So fear and the quote, I am not, are the sole cause of your experience of separation from God, source energy, or whatever it is that you wish to call it. So when you say to yourself, I am not God, you are actually fully embedded inside this weird experiment. And you are going to be living your life from an experience of fear, because fear is quite literally the experience of being separated from God, source, and fundamentally from your creator. So that's a simple foundational explanation about why it is possible for fear to exist at all. And that's the first key thing that you need to know to have a much bigger perspective on fear. Now, the second key thing that you want to be aware of is the actual physical source of fear in your own experience. The physical source of fear is found in your biological design, and more specifically with the design of your brain. Now, I am not a neuroscientist, but I can reason out a few things. Now, to me, if I observe the human brain from the place of being the infinite being that I am, and that of course you are as well, the human brain strikes me as sort of an odd patchwork thing that's been kind of cobbled together in a very weird sort of way. I mean, we have the reptilian part of the brain, we have the mammalian part of the brain, we have the, the neocortex, the human part of the brain. So think about this, guys. We have a human part, a mammal part, and a lizard part in our brains. That just sounds like some weird genetic experiment that's been cobbled together that's actually causing us an entire host of problems. So honestly, guys, in my opinion, this is seriously messed up. And you know, just because scientists can explain it all doesn't make it right. Now you might say, well, how do you know it's not right, Saratoga? Well, look at your own experience. Does this design really support you as the powerful creator that you are? Now, I will admit that this design is excellent for a highly programmable species that can work and design things according to someone else's mandate. For that, it's a pretty good design. But it's extremely problematic for highly empowered creators in the universe, which is who we really are. I mean, it creates a lot of struggle trying to get your brain and your body to cooperate with your heart and your highest self, right? So the second thing you need to know about fear is that your brain is perfectly designed to create an experience of fear. And the other thing is that your brain can actually be manipulated from the outside. It can be manipulated to create an experience of fear. I mean, what do you think the news media is all about, right, guys? And this, my friends, is why a spiritual awakening is so important. So it's an imperative first step to stop identifying yourself as your physical body alone. And that's how you can get some perspective on fear as you experience it on a biological, physical level. So overall, we are talking about how to deal with fear from a much higher level of consciousness and awareness. You begin by recognizing that in order for fear to have been created at all, certain physics had to be present. That's what that weird experiment was all about. And secondly, you recognize that your physical experience of fear is a product of how your biological body and brain are designed. Now, I know that there are those who will argue that we need to have that biological design that gives rise to fear because it protects us and it keeps us safe. But I would argue, on the other hand, that consciousness is a much better way. Because see, when you're in fear, you don't make good decisions, you can go into just total paralysis, your energy shuts down, you don't think clearly. None of that is really good for taking appropriate action. Consciousness, on the other hand, brings you clarity, brings you centeredness, lets your energy flow, brings you empowerment, all the good things that empower you so much more to take the best possible action. So I think consciousness is far, far superior to a presumed need for fear. Now, even though I have talked about not identifying yourself as your physical body, it's still very important to love your physical body and take excellent care of yourself on a physical level, because we are responsible for evolving our own physicality. And when we do that, we actually encourage our entire biological system to function in greater harmony with itself in ways that support who we are as the infinite creators that is indeed who we truly are. So everything I've shared with you here is all about perspective. And shifting to a more expanded consciousness and a higher perspective is what will dramatically empower your ability to deal with the fact that fear currently exists in our world and in our universe. So as you begin to understand this more and shift to a higher level of consciousness and perspective, you will be able to feel more in command of yourself and of your life, and you will not feel so controlled by fear and negative emotions. So I hope you will contemplate what I've said here and realize that it's okay to question any part of how your existence has been constructed. That's actually your right as a creator in this universe. And questioning the very existence of fear is the first step in reclaiming your power as a creator in this universe. So leave me a comment below and let me know if you found this intriguing, thought-provoking, or helpful. Just in general, share your thoughts with me about all of this. I'd love to know how you feel about everything that I've said. And if you want to learn more about this topic along with spiritual awakening and ascension, then subscribe to my channel and hit that notification bell so that you will be notified every time I post a new video. And please give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. And don't forget to share it out with anyone else who you think would benefit from this information. And with that, I'm sending you loads of love, light, and positive energy. Have a beautiful day. Namaste.